In this lesson, I want to kind of close out our JHipster tasks application and just take a look at the UI and show you what we did in the last lesson by creating that entity, and just talk a little bit about how we might refactor this. So here we are back in the application, our normal home page. I'm going to go ahead and sign in, and we'll just use user sign in. Now we have our entities, and now we have our task entity that we generated. So here we have a list of tasks. Again, we didn't build this UI. We can come in and create a new task. So it's going to ask us for a name. So we'll say my new task, due date. And because this was of type local date, it actually gives us a little date calendar picker, which is nice. So we'll set our due date here. It's not completed. We'll go ahead and save. And now there's our new task. So let's create one more. And we'll say another. And we might want to default this to like 7 days out from now. We could easily go into the UI and do that. So we'll say here, not completed. So now we can come in, we can view a particular one, we can go back, we can edit. Maybe we want to make this the same day. So we'll come in and save, and we can go ahead and delete. So this was all generated for us just by using that entity sub generator. So now, as we can kind of look at this, this isn't the most ideal interface, right? Like we have this entities drop down where we have like any entity that we created. And from a normal application standpoint, this probably isn't the greatest thing, right? So let's talk about like refactoring. So when we talk about generating the application itself and then using the sub generators to generate stuff within the application, it's really just helping us write boilerplate code. Like we don't want to have to write this stuff, but by no means is it generating your entire application and you're just never going to have to write code. So one thing I would do is I could probably see this being like our tasks homepage. We have information about our application here, but still we would probably somewhere down the line tie a task to a user, so it makes sense for them to have to log in. But when we log in, we probably don't want this entities drop down, right? We would probably change the navigation to say something like tasks, so then we get to a task thing. So let's jump in the code here. We're not actually going to rewrite anything, but I just want to walk through this. So if we know Angular development, if we've done Angular development before, we know it's really just about changing some things around, right? So we have our home. We can come in here, change our home component, our HTML here, to kind of reflect what we want on our home page. But then we can come into just kind of looking at this. If we look at layouts, there's a nav bar in here, and this is the nav bar component. And we could come in here. So here's entities, here's our entity drop down, and that would drop down and show our tasks. So we could easily kind of delete this out, just add in a task menu item, and that would get us to tasks. But again, we can use this code to kind of look at it the same. Like this is only being, so router linked active, router link active. And again, we're only showing this information if we are logged in. So we have like is authenticated here. So we could kind of reuse this code, refactor this to just show like our tasks menu item. And then what I could do is come into entities and pull this out as a separate. I actually don't need it underneath entities. I know there's an entities module here, but I would just create like a separate component, pull this out as like a top level component, and then inside of task we have all of our other information, or other components, if you will, inside a task. So we have our task delete, task detail, our pop-ups, our module, our service, and then our routing. And so these could all probably pretty much stay the same, because again, we probably want some type of role based on this, so that we're tying a particular task to a user. So I just kind of wanted to walk through this and show you that this doesn't generate this is not going to write your application for you, but what it did, it saved us a ton of time, and with a little bit of refactoring, we have an application that's ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was kind of our walkthrough of the JHipster tasks application, kind of replicating what we did in the first section, which we had to kind of write by hand from scratch. So I think that will close out this section, and let's go ahead and move on.